doing the inner work matters. Learning to get to know yourself matters. Learning to love yourself matters. Learning to hold space for your hurt parts matters, because it allows us to all be just more loving, more compassionate, more grounded, more centered, more supportive human beings.
Welcome to the Stay Grounded podcast. I'm your host, Raj Jana, founder of Liberate, and it's my mission to help you become the most grounded, loving, and authentic version of yourself that you can be. Each week, I interview experts in the fields of mindset, spirituality, and emotional well-being. My brilliant guests share their tools, stories, and unique perspectives to help you develop the skills you need to show up fully for the people and things that matter most in your life. Now let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this very special episode of Stay Grounded. This episode's really meaningful to me because we cover one of, in my eyes, the most important topics that could be talked about right now, which is holding space for the people in our lives to be themselves. You know, I've worked with a lot of coaches over the years. I've worked with a lot of therapists over the years. I've done a lot of different modalities and tools and tricks and the books and the insights. I've done a lot of that. But to this day, there is nothing more healing that I've experienced in my life than just being in the loving presence of another human being who does not judge me, who does not need to change me, who does not need me to be anything other than what I am. There's something so transformative about that power that we all have to just be a loving witness for another human being. And in this conversation, we talk a lot about how do we actually cultivate the skill of space holding? What is holding space? How can we integrate this very human skill set of co-regulation into our lives in the ways that we communicate with our families, our partners, our teammates, our colleagues, strangers, you name it? And how do we actually find human beings to hold space for us? That's a big piece too, right? And so this conversation was really powerful for me to, again, just remember how important it is to have people in our lives that hold space for us, and how important it is for us to learn how to hold space for others if we really want to heal this separation wound that is currently rampant in society. This you versus me, this I'm right, you're not, this ego trap that we find ourselves caught in because of trauma, because of wounds, because of conditioning. And I think the medicine is learning how to hold space. So I hope this conversation inspires you to pick up the skill yourself. I hope it empowers you with the information to learn where you can find communities that are holding space for one another and how you can access this medicine for you, and so much more. And I just love you guys. So thank you for being here. And without further ado, here is this week's episode on holding space.
Welcome back. Stay grounded. My buddy Alex. What's up, dude?
Hey, Raj. Great to be here.
All right. Today we are talking holding space. And what does that word even mean? I think it's a useful word to unpack. I think holding space traditionally has been kind of reserved for people that are in some type of a support capacity, right? So like I am, supporting you with transformation. I'm, a therapist. It's like I'm holding space for this person. I like to break it down as holding space is just being able to witness another human being in their experience as it is, with the intention of helping them feel safe, seen, and empowered. And I think that's the layer I would add on top of it, right? Because if you hold space, but your intention is to fix somebody or to change somebody or to help somebody feel something, to me, that's not holding space. That's coaching, or that's advising, or that's doing therapy. But holding space is just loving the other person as they are. And I think that is what's been missing in our society. Like, because we have this jumbled up view of the word space holding, we reserve it for people that are in some type of support role without recognizing that we're all healing each other by the way we interact with one another. And so you, Alex, if you come to me and you just have big emotions and a lot happening in your life, if I just met you with love and empathy And I knew the skill sets to be able to separate myself from my own triggers, from my own stuff that's coming up, and just be there for you. What a gift that I would give you, right? And that's ultimately the skill set that I'm so passionate about really cultivating within myself, because I've seen the impact it's made on my relationships and the types of relationships that I can have. And I see the impact it makes on every human being that's alive. Like, this is what's missing. Like, and everybody can learn these skills.
Yeah, and with that, do you think it's a downstream effect of not, I don't know if you would call it like becoming whole yourself, but becoming that witness yourself, learning to be in that witness role yourself and not insert your own maybe personal opinions or triggers or things onto the situation, especially when it's a close person, right? So it's somebody in your family, it's somebody in your work life
Yeah.
that if you put on your personal hat for a second, you might feel a certain way about how this person is expressing themselves. But what you're talking about, I think, is being able to hold space outside of that personal hat and having the witness perspective there. What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, and it's been a journey for me, right? Like, when I first got started down this path, I was really terrible at holding space. I didn't want to hear what I didn't want to hear. I could hold space for the things I wanted to hear. That was easy. Or when things were going on track, or when things were perfect. But when I would hear something that would directly contradict my belief systems, or when I would hear something that would bring up old memories or old emotion or old triggers, or when I would hear something that would be so painful to hear, it'd be hard for me not to want to go and help the other person, to project a belief system that I have, to change the situation. And over time, as I got better at witnessing those parts of me, I could stop them from influencing someone else's experience, right? So to me, you can only hold space for another person's authentic experience to the degree that you can hold space for your own authentic experience. And so, as we're all on this path, this is why I'm so passionate about the work we do at Liberate, about the trainings we create, because I really want to democratize or decentralize this work. Like, it's not something that's just reserved for therapists and coaches and the people out there. Like, no, like, every single human being should, in my eyes, I think this stuff should be taught in schools, to be able to hold space for yourself and others, because by doing so, you actually, again, can have more effective communication. You can actually hear what other people are saying, which is a gift. A lot of people listen without, or they listen without hearing what's actually being said. And so it's a skill set to be able to truly listen to the thing beneath the thing. Like, when somebody's in a trigger, like, one of the most powerful relationship tips that I ever received was not that the other person being in a trigger is them. It's actually their inner child that's in a trigger. So just look about that one frame right there, that one example right there. We talked about this on the episode with JP. Like, if you can zoom out and just look at that, what type of a response would you have? Right?
Mm-hmm.
But you can't even see the hurt child in another person unless you intimately know it within yourself. You cannot see something in another that you don't see in you, which is why it's so important on this path. This is why, whether you're in a space holder, a therapist role, a coaching role or not, doing the inner work matters. Learning to get to know yourself matters. Learning to love yourself matters. Learning to hold space for your hurt parts matters, because it allows us to all be just more loving, more compassionate, more grounded, more centered, more supportive human beings.
Yeah. And ultimately, do you think that a community of space holders, how has that looked in your life? Like, you're around a lot of people who do this type of work. And for somebody that might not be in those types of communities, what do you think it looks like to start on that path? And initially create that space for other people and create that space for themselves? And how has that looked in your life?
Yeah, I mean, when I first got started in fact, this is really what's informed a lot of how we do things at Liberate. When I first got started on my path, I would go to a lot of group journeys and experiences where I'd be in containers with a lot of people, not licensed therapists, not just people that were all coming together to talk about our deep insecurities, our feelings, what we were working on, what we were challenged with, and just learn to see each other for the beautiful human beings that we were. And that was the first time I was really exposed to this incredible technology of safe, like holding safe space. Like I wasn't being fixed, but just being myself was healing. We don't have that in society. We don't, and we go through our lives wearing masks and personas and trying to fit in and trying to mold how we are and how we're perceived and how our brands look and everything. But ultimately inside, what we're really craving is authentic connection. What we're really craving is to feel seen and heard and supported and witnessed in our authenticity. And so when I first got started, it was just being in containers with other people that were doing that. And now at Liberate, that's what we have. Like we have, the second you sign up for an emotional lab report, you get a mapping process where you get a space holder who literally is just going to witness you and love you and just hold safe space for you to unpack whatever's present in your life. No coaching, no fixing, nothing. Just somebody there to love you. And then you come into the community and there's a whole tribe of people that are all working on things together and being seen and witnessed in that. And then from there, you learn how to hold space for each other. And that's you learn by doing, right? And one of the things I've learned over the years is that you have to learn this stuff by doing, right? You can't learn it any other way. Like you got to be in there, you got to be messy sometimes, you got to make mistakes, but that's part of why, containers are so important. This is why we have our 2-day virtual training. That's why that's there, right? Because you now have this opportunity to kind of practice with people in a dojo before you go into the real world and work with clients, or before you go and hold space for your brother, your mom, or your child. Like having place to practice being messy is a part of learning how to hold space and how to hold space for yourself.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. I think a world that with people that know how to do this is a much better world than the one that we are
It's the
moving
one I
toward.
want to live in.
Yeah.
Our if you think about our arc of transformation, you begin by having space held for. So when you go into an emotional mapping session, you're feeling that, right? But as you get space held for yourself, the best way to then continue learning who you are is to hold space for others. Because when you are supporting, like Alex, you come to me with something, my ability to hold space for you is directly a mirror for where I'm at. And that's the biggest data we can have. Like we learn through each other. We learn through belonging. We learn through our mirrors. And so this is where it's like you go back and forth between doing your own work, right? And even in the Liberate process, like the trigger log, somebody else is a mirror for you, right? So you're doing both. You're almost like you're learning from other people about yourself, and you're holding space for other people so that you can learn even more about yourself. But ultimately, it's this give and take process of holding space for you, holding space for others, holding space for you, holding space for others. And the frameworks are all the same. I mean, inside the communities, we have trainings and stuff that we've developed for, people to learn more skills. But ultimately, the skill sets you're learning are emotional awareness, which is being aware of your emotions. And when I say being aware of your emotions, I mean being able to name your emotions, being able to hear the voice that's underneath your emotions, being able to park your emotions, being able to feel your emotions, being able to communicate what your emotions are telling you to another person so that they can receive it in a way that doesn't feel threatening. So that's like one form of things that we might teach or you might learn. Next thing might be emotional intelligence, right? So emotional awareness, emotional intelligence, these are all like different facets, which is again, like being able to zoom out and be able to see the truth in your emotions for what they are, which is then like your EQ. The reason why that's such a leadership metric and see in corporations is because that's your ability to empathize with another person.
Mm.
If I know my anger, I'm going to know how to speak to yours.
Yeah.
You know? And so there's
Yeah.
this innate kind of intimacy that's built when you do your own work with other people. So there's no substitute for that, but there are skills, right? So emotional awareness, vulnerability. Vulnerability is a big thing that, you know, you practice first with yourself by letting yourself go to those parts of you that are scary, that are judgy, that are shameful, that are kind of hidden and locked away. Now, that's the first step, is being vulnerable.
Mhm.
And by being vulnerable with yourself, you start to see how hard it is,
Yeah.
you know? And then you can empathize with somebody else when they're having a hard time being vulnerable. So do you see how that works? Like, by you building these within yourself, now all of a sudden you can see it in another.
Mhm.
And when you see it in another, that's when the beauty unlocks.
Yeah, and I think what's cool about this too is that it's not a training like a job training. It's a being training. This is something that you do and you carry throughout your entire life. It's a way of living. It's not like, oh, I'm going into space holding mode now. It's you walk this out in your life
A
through
lifestyle.
exactly what you just said of being vulnerable and learning those parts of yourself so that it can be reflected in others. It's not heady and knowledge oriented, although the skills you actually learn are very knowledge oriented, but I think that they're more so like it is a lifestyle of being this way. And if you are that way, then you're actually able to hold space for other people in that witness sort of way.
I mean, and this is where, like, I just can't think of a more powerful purpose.
Right.
You know, like helping other people feel safe, seen, recognized, understood is the greatest gift we can give them. Because when somebody feels safe, you're giving them the permission to shine and be themselves. You're letting their inner child wake up and be alive. And I really feel like, I mean, there will be a lot of things I do in my lifetime. You know, I have a podcast, I build companies, I do all these things, but where I feel the most fulfillment is when I'm sitting one-on-one with a dear friend or a partner or a family member, and I'm able to just be a safe enough presence for them to let go, to
Yeah.
be themselves, to be seen, to share what's really on their heart, even if it is against me. You know, it's stuff that with my parents, like, you know, my parents have been my biggest source of triggers and source of joy over the years. And, you know, I've gotten to a place now in my relationship with them where they feel safe enough with me to talk about their feelings. This is not where I was 4 years ago. And it's so rewarding. It's the most rewarding thing in the world to be in, to have that relationship with them. And I know that not everybody will have that opportunity, but we can be the mom or dad that our friends need. We can learn to be the brothers and sisters for our communities. We can learn to give back. And I think that's why I'm just so passionate about this work, because it's like you turn yourself into a ripple. And it's a ripple that you can't calculate. You have no idea the impact you are making on the world by being a safe space. You have no idea the impact you're making on the world by learning to understand yourself, and as a result of that, help others feel understood. You have no idea the impact you're making on the world by helping one person feel seen and recognized. You have no idea how many lives you're saving by just helping people feel like they belong. I mean, these are not things that you need to go to school for. They're not things that you need to graduate and pay for. These are things that are innately within you. And that's why I think it's also so empowering. We spend so much time trying to look for our purpose and find our calling. What if it was always right in front of us? What if it was always here?
I love that. I love that. I think that's a great place to wrap up because it's just the more that we do this work, the more that we're able to hold space, the more that the world just becomes a better place because you're able to get to a deeper depth of the human being.
Totally.
Everybody is.
Totally.
Yeah. I love that.
Totally, man. I mean, this is why, and anyone listening who wants to, either learn how to hold space or have space held for, just, head to the Liberate site and see what trainings we have live right now and what programs we have offered. But yeah, I mean, this is the work. This is the stuff that matters. And I'm so grateful. I mean, like I said, like this is my favorite thing to recognize people for. Like, you've become such a fantastic space holder, Alex, for these types of conversations to happen, right? Like, even the way you make me feel, I feel listened to, I feel heard. You're reflecting things back. You're not, it's your tempo, your pacing, your energy. You've worked on this.
Yeah.
And you've cultivated it, and it shows, and I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
And I see it because I also do the same.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I can spot it. And so and it's a beautiful thing. So thank you again for holding such a great space for this conversation. And everybody, that's a wrap for this week's episode of Stay Grounded. I'm your host, Raj. This is your new friend, or actually old friend now, Alex. From us, stay grounded. Chat soon.
Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of Stay Grounded. No matter where you're from or what you're going through, I hope it helps you remember just how incredible you are and have always been. If you're on a path of emotional healing or self-discovery and would like to learn how Liberate can support your journey, head to www.rajjana.com/liberate, that is LIBER8, to learn more about our current group programs and one-on-one offerings. I love you guys, and I'll see you next week.